This time, let's talk about a vintage European musket. I've noticed that there isn't much content about European musket on my channel. I think it's because I usually focus on rare firearms, which has resulted in fewer videos about European muskets. But today, although we're talking about an European musket, as always, it's still a rare one. First of all, let's talk about its lock mechanism. In Swedish, it's called the Flintsnapplås. If you are seeing it for the first time, you might notice that it looks quite similar to the locks used on Mongolian musket and Muskets style musket. Because of that resemblance, I believe it should be classified as a type of snap lock firearm. This kind of musket lock actually predates the true flintlock. It likely dates back to the 16th century. Over time, people made some improvements, for example, moving the main spring inside the lock, or adding a dog-lock style safety in certain versions. However, the core mechanism remained largely unchanged. But why did the Swedes continue to use this kind of early snap lock for so long? To understand that, we have to talk about civilian firearms in Sweden. In fact, not all Swedes used this kind of musket. It was mainly people in the north who favored it. In the military, this kind of snaplock was eventually replaced by the French flintlock and the doglock. One possible reason is that most military firearms manufacturers were located in the south, where civilian firearms gradually adopted more features from military models. In contrast, firearms in the north were often handmade. Gunsmithing, there was a traditional craft, and the snaplock mechanism was relatively easy to produce. This made it more affordable and accessible, especially for hunters. What's more, the south was primarily agricultural, while the north was sparsely populated with limited farmland. Hunting played a much more important role in daily life. For most gunsmiths, firearm making wasn't even their main source of income. Like many rural craftsmen, they were usually farmers or artisans who made guns as a side job. Most of the gun building took place in the winter, which also happened to be the peak hunting season. All things considered, it's likely that this type of Swedish snap lock disappeared the fastest in the southern Sweden. By the mid-18th century, most manufacturers had stopped making it, but in the north, people continued to use the traditional snap lock well into the 19th century. Probably, local gunsmiths still prefer crafting this simpler design. Despite its simplicity, some northern snap locks were quite well crafted. Historically, this type of snap lock remained in use in northern Sweden. When we look at 19th century examples, we find a situation very similar to what happened with Asian matchlock muskets. In many parts of Asia, snap matchlock were often modified into percussion cap lock guns. The Swedish snaplock showed a similar evolution. Its coke could be reused as the hammer in a percussion lock system. This made it relatively easy to convert these old muskets into percussion cap lock guns. Even after modification, many of these locks still looked a lot like their original versions. Although these guns featured in today's video were from Sweden, they weren't used only by Swedes. In fact, similar guns were often widely used in northern Norway, Finland, and Russia. Some of them even earned the name Sami pistols. That is the so-called Sami people's gun. This type of gun were often seen as outdated or backward, but today they will become highly valuable collectibles. In the end, I couldn't find the exact meaning of LODBÖSSA in any online dictionaries. So I asked the ChatGPT, and it told me that Lod in older Swedish can mean bullet or lead, as in mental lead, often used in bullets. Bössa means gun or rifle in Swedish. So LODBÖSSA literally means something like bullet gun or lead gun. In other words, a musket or a firearm. Does that sound right to you? If you know anything about Northern European languages, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. So, this is today's video, and thank you for watching. Hope you can like this video. Have a good day. See you next time. Bye.